Well, I know I'm a couple of minutes early, but I thought we'd get started and take a look at some Demiplane. For those who aren't familiar, Demiplane is a platform where you can access game rules, character creator. They also offer a platform for running games. And most of interest to myself is the Vampire the Masquerade collaboration that they have going, where you can get all of the V5 content digitally in a character creator. So if you are familiar with D&D Beyond, then some of this will look a little familiar to you. In that one of the people responsible initially for D&D Beyond is involved in this. What a wacky happenstance, eh? So, I thought I would take you through the platform. We'd take a look at it and see if we can't build a character together and assess, whether or not it ranks against good old books. I love my books, and so it's going to have to be pretty damned good. Shall we get started then? So as you can see, we've got Demiplane here. They have a bunch of different IPs under their belt at the moment. If we take a look at some of the games that they've got available, you can see, Alien RPG. They've got the new Dagger Heart. Hello, Seeker of Arcane. Hey, Plague, how you doing? They've also got Avatar Legends, which I keep getting told I need to start playing, but apparently there's still only 24 usable hours in every day. They've also got the Candela Obscura rule set. More likely to get me involved in that one. It looks really intriguing, very interesting. I just need, maybe an 8th day to the week. That would be really helpful. But for tonight's purposes, we're going to take a look at Vampire the Masquerade. So, what's available on Demiplane? Oh, I should add, hashtag not sponsored. Not sponsored by Demiplane. I am just genuinely interested in any sort of tool set that makes things a little bit easier for people to get into the game. And if digital character sheets are your jam, this might be right up your alley. So, right off the bat, looking at the Vampire Nexus, this is the official digital toolset for Vampire the Masquerade. We can see that you can embrace the night and create a character. You can also explore Vampire by taking a look at some of the books and bundles that are on offer. Right off the front page here, you can view characters that you've already created. There is a game compendium. We'll get into that in a second. And there's also a digital library where you can take a look at all the sources that you do own in their tool and access them and go through them that way. There's also a couple of little extra goodies that I think are particularly great if you're perhaps a first-time player or if you're just jumping into a one-shot and just want something really quick. So they've got ready-to-play characters here, which I think is a fantastic addition. I would love to see one for each clan. Maybe that's coming. So we can see here a little bit more in-depth information about the character tools. I should say I have already created some characters. I've had a bit of a play around. So this is not my, my first rodeo, but I wanted to have a bit of a poke around before I present it to you guys so that I understand a little bit of where things are, how it works, that sort of a thing. Again, spruiking the digital books and bundles. And yes, you can join Nexus and open up a bunch of stuffs. I do have a membership. I do also own all of the digital library that's currently available. So if you decide to take a look, hey Nomish, take a look at some of these tools, not all options may be available. You do need to own the books in order to get the character options that are available. So your mileage may vary. If you already own some of the physical books, you may not be interested in this tool. But yeah, I thought I would go all in, try so that I can give you guys my honest opinion. So we come down to the game rules compendium, which also has its own um, uh, anchor link, so you can get to it right away. They have definitely made the Vampire Nexus very, very on brand, really. I haven't really explored any of the other IPs that they currently have, so I can't say whether or not they do as good a job for the other titles that they've got. But definitely this, yeah. I'm feeling vampire just looking at it. So at the game's rules compendium, you can access your clans, disciplines, powers, skills, predator types, merits and flaws, items, antagonists, backgrounds, and lore sheets. Really everything that you need to take a look at, either as a player or a GM or a storyteller. If you need quick access to something, this is probably the best way to get about it. And then you've got your quick links down the bottom here. I really appreciate the customized footer links at the vampire section, going with the clans and the disciplines. What I would really like to see here is if you could build your own quick links. So if there's something that you're always going and referencing, being able to build up a library of those would be really, really good. As a storyteller, I know there are certain things that no matter how many times I read them in a book or rule on them at a table, they just don't stick. So being able to fast link or quick link for myself, those sorts of things, that would be really great. Maybe I'll put in a feature request. I don't know if anyone else needs that or if it's just me and my special brain, but that would be really helpful to me. So coming along here, there's your game compendium, taking a look at the current source library that is available. So you've got, this is the all sources view. So obviously core book, player's guide, probably the two things that you absolutely do need in order to just get a character going. Definitely the core book. The player's guide adds in a couple or a few more clans, some additional disciplines. So, I mean, if you want the smorgasbord of character options available, I would say they're the two that you probably really want to get. They also do have stories available, so you can run your story digitally. So Auld Lang Syne is a New Year's Eve themed Vampire the Masquerade game. You've got Blood Sigils, which goes into blood sorcery and thin blood alchemy a little bit more. All of the Onyx Path Publishing Chicago themed books. So we've got Chicago by Night, Chicago Folios. They're really, really good for La Sombre if that's your jam. Well, as I said at the top, Seeker, you might have missed that. I own all of the things, so we're going to get a little bit of a look into all of them. They did take some time to get the books onto the platform. There was a bit of a lag between the announcement that Demiplane was going to be an official partner and actually getting the content available, to the point where I was like, am I going to cancel my membership? Because it was hanging around and not really usable. Now that they've kind of caught up, the lag was a well discussed topic amongst a couple of friend groups that I've got, where just for ease of moving around, myself, I run a lot of games here and there and everywhere, and being able to access a digital tool was really tantalizing and a really, really appealing, just so that I can stop having to go and print off character sheets all the time. But yeah, the lag was really getting to me, and as I said, almost made me cancel my subscription. Moving down, we've got Cult of the Blood Gods, which, if you like some culty action tier vampires, may be of interest. And again, all of the stretch goals for that particular Kickstarter from Onyx Path, very delicious. They've got the Anarch source book, they've got the Camarilla source book, Second Inquisition, and most interesting, I think, of all, they've got Sabat the Black Hand. Now, in V5, the Sabat is not technically a playable sect. So I find it very interesting that they've included this antagonist's book here. That being said, I haven't really delved into it, mostly because I utilize a different book. It's homebrew, technically, for Sabat characters. And I will say that is one detraction from this tool set. Because they're official, there is not currently any ability to include homebrew items or anything from Storyteller's Vault or anything like that. It's a bit of a problem for me in that I like to bring in different ideas. I like to collaborate with my players and come up with some different ideas for things like disciplines or backgrounds or that sort of a thing. I hope that's on the roadmap for them. It's not a showstopper by any means. It's definitely a nice to have. And moving on, I noticed this evening as I was double checking things, I might have missed the announcement by Renegade, but Renegade and Demiplane have done a bargain deal where you can get the core book, Nexus, and hardcover, which was another thing that a lot of us who had already purchased the books or were in the process of getting the back catalogue were a bit concerned about. So there were some rumors that, maybe Renegade not giving out book codes like previous publishers used to do was going to be a problem for them. I can understand now, having seen this, why they've gone that route. So if you're familiar with Modifius books, back when V5 was originally launched, they would include a code where you could go and get the digital download. There's a lot of things slotting into place for me with business decisions by Renegade and the Demiplane move that we're now seeing. I can talk about that in a different video if folks want to hear me rant for 2 hours. But this is a good move. I really like this. As someone who collects the books and who is seeing that this tool has longevity and reusability and is not just a Pokemon, I've got to catch them all on every platform kind of a deal. I think this is a really clever move. Definitely a clever move by Renegade, who does struggle to deliver goods and certainly physical items to an international market. If this manages to maintain the pace with all of the physical publications, I would be very interested to purchase my physical books through this platform rather than going to Renegade themselves, especially because I buy it, I've got the digital asset right then and there. There's no, now I need to wait for shipping. So yeah. Plague, a lot of people have been hesitant to go and get the books. I know definitely, us in Australia having to wait for Renegade to get around to opening the Australian store. Now we have to wait for exorbitant shipping that sometimes costs more than the original item we've purchased, plus the time for shipping. It's just bonkers. Yeah, I agree, Seeker. I think it's a positive move. I think as people become a bit more familiar with Demiplane and as we get more people into the IP itself, I think this is going to take off. I mean, I don't want to count chickens before they're hatched, but this is a very clever business move by Renegade and by Demiplane to really harness newbies new or people who are wanting to collect the books. If you've already got the digital PDFs, cool. You can't use the PDFs that you've already purchased off Renegade in Demiplane. So that does cause a minor issue if you're wanting to run the game through Demiplane or use your character sheets. You need to purchase the Demiplane asset. So yeah, for some of us, we've purchased things 3 or 4 times, which is a bit demoralizing, but it is what it is. All right, and then we go further down into the physical and digital assets. Okay, moving past that into your character tools, we're going to go here. So when you click on the characters section up the top of your screen, it shows you all of the IPs that are available. So to give you an idea, Hunter is coming soon, which is pretty exciting. I would love to see what the next IP coming is. I would really hope that Werewolf is also on its way. I know that a lot of these titles are not congruent. You can't really mush them into the same sort of game, but it is heartening to see that the collaboration between the two businesses is, at least on surface value, appearing to be growing. Bringing Hunter in is a great idea. It gives you your actual adversaries to to Vampire the Masquerade. Well, Vampire and Hunters, yeah. But yeah, would like to see a bit of a roadmap between the two companies to see when we can expect these other titles to be brought on board. So because I have a subscription, I have multiple characters. I'm not going to show you all of the characters I've got because I created them for some players who booked me for a game. You can check out my Start Playing. But you can, if you've got, not unlike D&D Beyond, if you've got multiple characters, you can actually search them rather than needing to go through the entire list. So, I think we might create a character. What do we think? Now, I will say I am on Australian internet. Hello, Piglet. So, my Australian internet is a little bit slow. That being said, it is trying to load a lot of information, and you'll see when it's there. If you have never created a character in V5, there is a pretty convoluted way of going about it that on surface seems to be straightforward. You just follow this list. But if anyone has seen me create a character, I will be rolling backwards and forwards between my bookshelves. It is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And heaven forbid you want to do any sort of homebrew or anything like that, because then you're going backwards and forwards between all different sources. For let me see if I can show you what I'm looking at. So, a V5 character sheet looks something like this and this on absolute basic level. If you're playing a character, say a Tremere, or a La Sombra, or a Hakata, where you have potential for, or Banu Hakim, potential for blood sorcery, extended rituals, ceremonies, that sort of a thing, you are going to need more pages than just this 2-page character sheet. And that's when things get a little bit bananas. So, in the interests of going hard or going home, I think I am going to make a Hakata character. They are the clan that I love the most. And it will give us an idea of just how well this tool deals with that expanded sort of information. I've created a bunch of simplified characters, Malkavians, Toreadors, Ventru, that sort of a thing, that don't have the expanded requirements for rituals and ceremonies. So let's take a look, shall we? I think we will make this character a Maria. And she is going to be a little bit older. This is going to unlock a bit of additional experience that we can then spend on more ceremonies for her. So we're going to make her an ancilla. Now, for those who didn't see, it actually guides you as you're going through this. Shut up, Plague. I was only going to do a Toreador for this, and then I thought, no, let's put it through its paces. So, as you take a look at the Sea of Time, you can select a childer who was embraced within the last 15 years, a neonate who was embraced between 15 and 50 years ago, or an ancilla who was embraced between 50 and 100 years ago. In V5, the elders are mostly non-existent. If you've played Swan Song, the video game, there is one there, and he's something of a rarity. So really playing an elder in these modern knights, no, I mean, you can do it, but the rules as written don't really allow for it. There are ways and means to get around that, though. So we're going to make her an ancilla. And you can see here that it already tells you what adjustments have been made for your character's age. So you get additional blood potency, you get additional advantages, additional flaws, your humanity drops by a point, and you have some additional XP that you can spend. Some of this is reflected up in the top here. And one thing I will say about this tool is it is really good at letting you know what comes next. No diablerie here. I've never diablerized with any of my characters, ever. That is a bold-faced lie. Almost all of them have. Okay. So, Hakata. You know what? I think we might go with this young lass here, who's looking a bit La Sombra, actually. But you know what? I rate it. Now we wait for my very old computer to catch up. There we go. There is also a really good explanation of what character creation, what your fundamentals are, on the right-hand side here, and gives you a pretty good idea of, if you're not already familiar with Vampire the Masquerade, congratulations, you play the monster. Really driving that idea home that as you're going through this character creation, don't make them a hero. They ain't no cape wearer. I mean, they might wear a cape, but they're not your superhero. They are a monster who requires blood, which requires prey. Okay, so you can look for a particular clan, or you can just scroll through. I think these images, while a snippet, are really beautiful. They give a really good idea behind sort of a vignette into the theme of the clan. So we see Ravnos, always on the move, traveling, Nosferatu, underground, in those secret spots. Ministry, snake. Gangrel, out under the stars. Kaitif, wandering, looking for a place to fit in, maybe. Bruja, that fiery sort of temper. Yeah, I think that this is really quite beautifully done. There's a lot of thought that's gone into the design of this. It's not just function. There's been a lot of thought about the form. And again, a bit of a description about the clans, what they mean in the grand scheme of things, a little bit of history, where the clans currently sit in the different sects, who likes who hates who, what the hell's going on. It even goes back to, Granddaddy Kane, giving a bit of an idea, if you believe in that stuff. Whatever's. So we're going to pick Hecata. You can see here on the left-hand side, normally I do not like interfaces that are cut into different columns. It's not accessible. It really makes it difficult for someone who's using, say, a screen reader to hear what's going on as the screen reader is talking. From a visual perspective, I will say for someone who is sighted and does not have, other than my glasses, accessibility requirements when it comes to web content, this really does help me figure out where I am in the process of making a character. One small issue that I have with this particular interface is the choice of typeface for the clans. If you see the Banu Hakim, the Q in Hakim, you can't really see the cross angle there. I think if you were seeing that on a larger screen, that might help. But yeah, I understand why they've gone for the sans serif block font. It's easy to read. It's easy to have a long sort of title there, but it does make that Q look like an O, which is suboptimal, I guess. All right, so we've selected Hecata. And we get a bit of information about our clan. They're known as the Clan of Death, Necromancers, Grave Robbers, the Family, Stiffs, Corpses, Devil Kindred, and Lazarines. This information, while not necessary, you could just make a character without knowing what you're doing. Actually, that would be kind of delicious to just have a random table and roll a character up. Maybe one day. A lot of this information has come from existing books. So it's not necessarily a lift and shift, but it's been edited, which is very nice because I don't want to be reading 37 pages worth of lore. It does give you your archetypes, which is really useful if you're not coming from a place of existing lore knowledge. We see a little bit of information about some of the little families of the Hecata. And then we get a little bit of history. So the Hecata are a relatively newly formed group of bloodlines. And with that comes a bunch of history. So I won't go into the history of it. If you want to see me wax lyrical about the Cappadocians, too soon. And the Giovanni, let me know on my socials. I will absolutely happily rant about them for a good couple of hours. But I really like that it gives you a bit of information on where the Hecata have come from, what family tensions might be there. It really helps you get into a flavor so that if you want to, later on down the line, grab a lore sheet for one of these bloodlines, you know where you're coming from, or you know what to look for at the very least. It does say here, alternatively, the storyteller may see fit to offer an exclusive 4-dot merit, which allows Hecata to purchase their bloodline's replacement discipline as a 4th in clan. Now, I have not seen any which way to do that on this interface. It will be very interesting if and when we are able to do that. But going further down this clan information, you see the 3 in-clan disciplines for V5. If you're not familiar, there are a bunch of disciplines, or magic powers, I guess, fueled by a vampire's blood. These are the powers that the clan Hecata naturally have access to. So Auspex, which is the ability to see beyond the mundane, it gives you insights to things. It allows you to see things that aren't necessarily there in the everyday. Fortitude fortifies your body. Yeah, traditionally they were necromancers, very corpse-like sometimes. So some fortitude would not go awry, or amiss rather. And then Oblivion. In V5, Oblivion is an amalgamation. I use that word loosely because there are amalgams, but it is an amalgamation of necromancy and the La Sombras tapping into Oblivion powers for their intents and purposes, pulling on shadows, that sort of a thing. You either like it or you don't. I love it. I think it's a really great idea. I have particular ways that I rule for Oblivion at character creation. And that does require me knowing where each of the discipline powers has come from, whether it's a La Sombra one or a Hecata side one. Anyone who's played at my table will understand why that is. And then we go into compulsions. So every clan has its own compulsion and bane. These are the downsides to being a vampire. Well, some of the downsides. So Hecata are possessed of a peculiar curiosity paired with detachment from compassion and empathy, likely due to their frequent dealings with corpses and the rates of those who died tragic deaths. It goes into, when you are affected by your compulsion, you will be compelled, I guess, for want of a better term, to uncover an impending death, to either foretell it, look for signs, use some medicine, that sort of a thing. You don't need to be absolutely correct when you do it. It's just a guess on the available evidence and a snapshot in a point of time. But until you make a discovery or uncover something about an impending death, you are at a dice penalty. And then we go into the Bane. So when all of the bloodlines of the Hecata came together, everybody in the happy little family took on the Bane of the Giovanni, which is a very painful kiss. And that means that while other clans have a sense of euphoria associated for their victims when they're being fed upon, the Hecata do not. It hurts. It hurts a lot. And there are frenzy tests and coercion and all sorts of nonsense that needs to happen in order to feed unimpeded. And it goes through some different feeding methods you might like to try if you're playing a Hecata. Most interestingly is it then goes on to information that's contained in the player's guide, which was, in the grand scheme of things, quite a late release for V5. You're looking at clan coterie merits, which we can get into a little bit later, and another archetype, which is a reanimator. Think Dr. West. And then we get into some bloodlines with links to lore sheets that might be appropriate for your character. And the variant clan bane that was introduced in the player's guide, which is decay. This speaks more to that Cappadocian Samedi kind of origin story for your potential character, in that everything around you it starts to decay. I mean, you might be playing a Cappadocian, you might be playing a Lamia. These sorts of things really play into this Clan Bane alternate. So it's really nice that they've also been included in here. And then we go into a bit more information. You could create your character almost entirely through this section, at least insofar as your discipline powers and whatnot go. But we are going to go through on face value. That's an awful lot of information to contain in a sidebar. So we're going to select the clan, boop, and wait for it to load. And we can see that this sidebar here is, while it's having a bit of a think about it, stepping down as we get through all of this. Oh, come on, little computer, you can do it. I believe in you. I don't know if you can hear it, but the fan on my computer is going bananas right now. Come on. Come on. Oh, it thinks we're there, but the screen hasn't. Oh dear, come on, darling. You can do it. Selecting the Bane. Cool. I am probably going to go with Painful Kiss, only because... Actually, no, I'm going to go with Decay. I don't normally play with the variant Banes. So that'll be interesting. My computer is absolutely the little train who could. Yeah. I really need a new computer. I really, really need one. There we go. Okay, so we've selected our Bane. Beautiful. Well, we've seen it update here. Delicious. And now we're going to go on to attributes and skills. Maybe next time I will try this on my poor little Windows machine that is almost... Actually, no, it's much older, much newer than my little Mac that I'm currently on. Okay. Something's changing. Hooray! So, attributes and skills. Something that I like about this is that it takes us through the dot placements very easily. So for those who don't know, when you're looking at your skill sheet, dots are how good you are at something, or how well honed your body is at doing something. So we've got a bit more information that we can read here to help us make some educated decisions. I'm not going to read this all out to you. But for all intents and purposes, your attributes and your skills are split up into 3 different groups. You have social, mental, and physical. And as you look at a character sheet, you will see we've got physical, social, and mental. And then they're your attributes, and then underneath your skills also fall into those sorts of things. This becomes particularly useful when you have disciplines that boost social skills or relevant social skills, or where you have your clan bane activated or your compulsion activated and are at a deficit or penalty for dice rolls for particular groupings or attributes. It goes into a little bit of specialties talk. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, let's start placing these. So I'm going to take a look at the 4 dots placement for my attributes to start off with. And we're going to wait for the screen to Refresh. Excellent. So, if you would like to update, please screen. Please. Hooray! So, taking a look at our attributes, you can see to start off with everything has 2 dots. 2 is middle of the road. It's kind of where everything starts, and we build around there. So, given that the Hakata are skilled necromancers, I think that this particular character I am going to make a very talented necromancer. I know anybody who knows me or has known me for more than 2 years will be shocked by this. I love my necromancers. I love them big time. So, to that end, I am going to put my 4 dot placement into intelligence. This is going to help me when I am running rituals or trying to figure out what's going on with something. So, we have our 4 dot attribute selected here, and I'm going to go select that for intelligence. It will update any second now. Doop, 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 doop. Human, please. There we go. So you see, automatically populates, and you can see now on the 4 dots that it shows that we have 1 selection. When we come down to the 3 dot placements, you'll see that there are 3 selections that we can make. So we select 3 dots. Oh, my poor computer. There we go. Okay, so taking a look at our stats up the top here. Health is calculated by your stamina plus 3. So we can see that my stamina is currently sitting at 2 dots plus 3, which makes it 5. Your willpower is calculated by adding together the dots that you have in composure and resolve. And again, we can see that there's 2 dots in each of those. So our willpower currently sits at 4. When and this is some behind the scenes knowledge, but when a necromancer is trying to compel a spirit to do something, they generally need to work on using their resolve or their manipulation or their composure to do something, to compel the spirit to do more. So to that end, I think that thinking about the type of person this character might be, I think that she is pretty composed. Push comes to shove, she can generally keep things together, but if she gets taunted or that sort of a thing, she might snap. A little bit of a fire underneath there, maybe just embers until someone stokes it. So I'll put 3 dots into composure. I think as well, I might put 3 dots into wits. So wits is, let's take a look. If you click on these arrows down, it will give you an expanded idea of what this attribute is actually about. So wits are for thinking quickly and reacting correctly on little information. You hear a sound is wits. You hear 2 guards coming is intelligence because you're analysing the sound and making inferences from it. Wits lets you smell an ambush or answer the harpy back at court right away instead of thinking for the best response the next night. And then it gives you a little bit of a breakdown of what each dot might look like for your character. So looking at this, 3 dots in wits would say you can analyze the situation and quickly work out the best escape route. I would think if I'm dealing with wraiths and spirits on a nightly basis, I should probably have my shit together and be able to figure out how to get out of Dodge real quick if the proverbial hits the fan. Hello, John. Hi, welcome. We are building a character in Demiplane. So we'll put 3 dots. Hi, Meeples. 3 dots into wits, and this is combined with her intelligence is going to make it so she can analyze a situation very, very quickly and react, and she can also take a step back and go, what is the best course of action here? What would be, she can strategize and turn on a dime, basically. And then we've got one more placement for 3 dots. Well, I don't think she's particularly strong, but I think she does have dexterity on her side. She's been casting rituals. She knows her way around a knife rather than firearms or something like that. So I would say she's probably pretty dexterous. She can probably catch a candle when it falls and threatens to burn the place down with fair alacrity. So we'll put our last 3 dot placement into dexterity. And then we come down to the 1 dot. 1 dot is not a curse. It's just not something that you've ever necessarily need to really push home. So I feel like she's not particularly charismatic. She's probably a bit of a homebody. Keeps to herself. I wouldn't say she's antisocial. She's just not social. Definitely not tapping on real life here. So we'll put, yeah. Or strength. Nah, she's had to lug bodies around because she's a necromancer. Yeah, charisma. There we go. All right. I'm social when it counts. Oh, thank you. I'm social on the internet. And if there's food involved. All right, so that's our attributes set in place as soon as it updates. There we go. All right, back to our middle panel here, and we're looking at skills. So, skills attributes, skills distribution. We have 3 different choices that we can make. We can go with a jack of all trades, we can go with a balanced, or we can go with a specialist. Now, these all allow for different dot placements. So if we see the jack of all trades, he's relatively good at one thing, pretty okay at a bunch of things, and passing knowledge at even more. This is not Bob. This is not Bob, Icar and Ink. This is not Bob. No problem, Seeker. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, with your jack of all trades, like it says on the tin, you're okay at a bunch of stuff. You're not fantastic at much, but you can get by. I will be making Cursed Bob next time. I will pull him in to Nexus and we will use this to finish making him, just for you. All right, if we take a look at the balanced skills distribution, this is more like, again, as it says on the tin, balanced. I am concerned about your well-being mentally if you think that there is a next time on Nexus Ball Z. All right, so balanced. We've got 3 placements with 3 dots this time. 5 at 2, and 7 at 1. So it's a shorter distribution curve, but it does bump up that 3 dots a little bit more. So it's when you're looking at what distribution you want to go for, you really want to think about the type of person your character was before they became embraced, as well as how long they've been embraced and what skills they've honed in that time. For new players, tend to go with a jack of all trades because it gives them a bit of a smorgasbord, a good distribution of dots in enough skills that they're never really going to get stuck. Either jack of all trades or balanced, depending on what kind of a situation I'm thrusting them into. When I make my characters, however, I tend to make them specialists only because I like the idea of a human being who has caught the eye of a vampire because they're particularly good at something or they're particularly bad at something. Whatever. A lot of my characters that I've played tend to be very good at one particular thing, passing okay in a couple of other things, and really it's they're attempting to do something that they're not good at that brings about their downfall, forces their sire's hand, puts them into a situation where it's either your sire gets rid of you and just forgets about you and moves on to the next potential, or embraces you then and there. My previous Hakata Eliana was like that. Alice, if you've watched Red Centre by Night, was like that. She was a specialist in subterfuge and stealth, and at the time, not really good at much else. Eliana was very, very good at necromancy. She was a budding necromancer from the get-go, and was also actually quite social as well, in contrast to this character, which made her a bit of an anomaly amongst her kin. Not that she really spent an awful lot of time amongst other Hikata. She was of the Cappadocian bloodline, and as such, bore a grudge. A big, hefty chip on her shoulder. Did not want to hang out with Giovanni or any of the other little families. Preferred instead to kind of hang out with Nos or Malkavians, and used her social skills to go hunting. But we're not building Eliana. We're not talking about Alice. We're talking about Maria. So I feel like I'm going to make her a specialist. I think that she was brought into the fold because she's a good occultist, not necessarily a necromancer, but a good occultist. Maybe she was particularly good at foreseeing death. I think that's a pretty good archetype. And so, for the 4-point placement in her skills, I'm probably going to go. I mean, I could go with occult and death magic, or death rites, that sort of a thing. Or I could go with awareness, and then by a specialty later on down the line in awareness of death. But I think for the purposes of tonight, I think we will go with occult for the 4-dot placement. It just kind of makes the most sense for a Hikata. For the 3-dot placement, I definitely want that awareness up there to tie into her ability to foresee death. If my computer would kindly update. Yeah. Oh dear. There we go. All right. 3 dots. I should say at this point, obviously, this is a much faster process when I am also not streaming. I managed to make 6 character sheets in the course of, I think, 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. I already had an idea of what I was doing. And yes, I am well versed in how to create characters, but it is possible. It is possible to breeze through this. So if you're looking to just very quickly make a character for a one shot, this is super simple. But like I said earlier, if you're wanting to pull in homebrew stuff, this may not be the right tool for you yet. I don't know if they're going to be building out a library for that sort of a thing, like D&D Beyond has. Speed running a VTM character creation. Oh, woof. I have made so many characters. I could make it like that. Although that being said, I do still need to refer to the character creator guide in the book. Because I forget bits. All right. So, 3-point placements. I am going to go into awareness. I am going to go into I think I'm going to go into stealth for sneaking into graveyards late at night. And I think as well we might put something into I think maybe insight, so that she can determine what people want from her. She may not be very social, but that doesn't mean that she's not good at being able to figure out the correct things to say to people, to read the subtext, I guess. Oh, my poor little computer, she's struggling. All right. Come on. You can do it. Excellent. So there is the 3 placements under the specialist for our 3 dots. As soon as stealth updates. Actually, I would love to see a side-by-side, like actually challenge someone to a speedrun character creator. That would be fun. And very silly. The kind of characters that you would come up with. So silly. All right, we'll do it, Plague. We'll do it at some point. All right, so now we see that the 3 selections have been made for the 3 dots. Coming down to the 2 dot placements. Now, I don't think that this is a particularly physical character. I don't think that she is great in a fight. I think she's potentially good at running away from fights, so I might put 2 dots into athletics so that she can brave Sir Robin her way out of problems. Athletics is absolutely the best skill in VTM. What's that? Have I bitten off more than I can chew? Bye! What's that? Did I set the cat amongst the pigeons? Pew! Did I displease the sheriff at Elysium? Whoops. And again, as we're taking a look, you can see here that it's giving you an idea of the countdown and how much more you've got to go. So in total, we've got 23 more points to assign, and this is before we get to concept and lore and XP, but we've got, come on, it's still not really registering the stealth. But once the stealth has registered, this should say 6 because we will have 3 placements for 2 dots and 1 placement for 1 dot. Oh, sorry, 3 dots. 3 placements for 1 dot. I can with the English and the talking. Oh boy. Okay, so yes, we're going to do athletics. And it tells us here, again, reiterating in multiple points, what it is that you're doing, where you are at. Select. Give it to me. No, come on. Oh dear. There we go. We'll reduce this and move it down. I feel like she would have some knowledge of etiquette, only because she's been in the family, and the family are all about etiquette internally and not putting forward a bad face publicly. Again, we see here that issue with the typeface issue with the cues not really rendering that crossbeam properly. So yeah, 2 dots into etiquette. And I feel like also either investigation or technology. Maybe she keeps her Book o' Shadows or her ceremonies online and needs it password protected, and so has a bit more understanding of the technology world. Oh no, she's Ancile, so not technology. Anciles aren't like super old, but they're old enough. They're not ancient. They can certainly pick up new skills, but they're not like born this century. So maybe we will pop it in that last 2 dot placement into investigation so that she can hunt around, she can find stuff, uncover secrets, find skeletons in the closet, metaphorically and literally. Okay. As soon as this registers, we've got 3 1 dot placements to go. Hurry up. Oh yeah, I've got the free specialty. That's why it's showing an extra dot up here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so 1 dot placements. Come on. How is everybody having a good evenings? I hope your Tuesday night is treating you well. Let's close this. Please, can we close this? Apparently not. Okay, so let's go with our 1 dot placements. I'm going. You're drawing a combat wombat. Okay. What is TWW2? What is this, John? I am not familiar with this. Okay, I'm going to go with melee because she knows her way around a knife. Oh, Total Warhammer 2. Of course. Please select. Please select. This poor computer. I feel like as well she's probably got a dot in tech. She knows how to use a mobile phone. She maybe doesn't live online like most of us, but yeah, she knows how to keep in touch with people. I'm sure someone in the family's shown her how to do that. Now, occult things don't come cheap, so I think she would have some understanding around finance, if only to make sure that she's not living paycheck to paycheck quite so much, and can still afford her ritual accoutrement. So we might give her a dot in finance so she can manage her money. And I think just because she's like an OG spooky kid, we might give her a dot in intimidation. She's not like big and scary, but people might take notice if she goes, I'll stick a wraith onto you, kind of a thing. Maybe? Yeah. Yeah, I think that works. Oh no, come on. Come on, Firefox, you can do it. So done technology. Let me get a dot of intimidation. All right, so that's all of our placements for our skills, and then you've got your specialties, which you can add in. So once this updates, specialties are a subset of a skill that if you are choosing to harness that particular element to do something, you get an additional die to that dice pool. So, for instance, if I had a specialty in Camarilla court etiquette and I was having an audience with the prince and wanted to understand sort of the dynamic between everyone else in the room, I could potentially utilize my specialty in Camarilla court etiquette to do, an etiquette and insight or manipulation or charisma or whatever the storyteller chose to add an extra dice pool using that specialty to figure out what was going on. Maybe wits. Wits and etiquette? Yeah, maybe. So, specialties. You can also use your specialties if you want to be sneaky about it to kind of pad out something that you know your character's not particularly good at, but that you're going to get asked to do a lot. So, in my particular games, wits and awareness, wits and investigation, or intelligence and investigation get to be kind of the most called for type roles. only because I tend to do Scooby Gang investigation type one shots where there's a mystery, you have to unsolve it, you have to solve it, kind of a thing. For others, you know, that are very combat focused, you might be looking to bolster, say, your brawl or your melee or something like that. It really depends on your storyteller, the type of story that you're going for. But me, when I'm just creating a character for shenanigans, I tend to go with something that I think that person would have been particularly good at as a human. Something that's carried through into being a vampire, and is something that they utilize regularly. So for this character, I will go with a cult because she's going to harness that day in, day out. That is her bread and butter. That's why she got selected to be a vampire. And then as we collect here, or select rather, from our drop down of what we would like to make uh, a specialty for, it chooses from things that we already have dots in and gives you some ideas of what you might like to do in that specialty area. These are taken from the books themselves, so it's not introducing any new information. So I feel like this necromancy is kind of her jam. I think she might be a necromancer, folks, not a necrotech, but just a plain necromancer. Um, cool. And so, what this will mean is if this character is trying to do anything with necromancy specifically, say it's a wits plus occult role and it's involving, you know, taking a look at what's in the room to try and find out what kind of necromantic ritual might have been done here, it will be her wits plus her occult, which is already at 4 dots, plus an extra dot for the necromancy, which just ups your odds for getting more successes. So, with that done, we're going to go on to disciplines and powers. Boop. Maybe. Maybe we are. I hope we are. Cool. So, taking a look at the character creation guide in the book, first and foremost, you put 2 dots into one of your incline disciplines and 1 dot into another of your incline disciplines. We see that reflected here. We also get a bit more about learning about what disciplines are. Again, I hate a columned interface, but I think this is really, really good for someone who may never have touched vampire or like has a scant understanding of what is going on here. Gives you a good idea of what it means to get more dots into a discipline, and then gives you an example here, which is really delicious. It really helps you contextualize some of that sort of less concrete information. And so also talks about amalgam powers, how to use your powers, what this means, and it helps you make a really educated decision about what it is that you're wanting to put those dots into. So for our Hecata Maria, I'm going to put the 2 dot placement, and this will come as no shock to anybody, into Oblivion, being the premier Hecata discipline. So we'll do that. And then I'm probably going to put the 1 dot placement into Auspex because we've said that she can foresee death, and that was the thing that like really caught the eye of her sire. Being able to work up to that premonition in the level 2 of Auspex is probably a really good idea for this character. and there will be an opportunity for us to buy more discipline powers with our 35 experience that we have left over at the end. Also, some backgrounds, some merits, some advantages, some lore sheets help you boost up these as well. So, one dot placement into all specs, please. And then it tells us here how many powers we can grab. So your Oblivion ceremonies are not unlike your blood sorcery rituals in that you might have 2 levels in the Oblivion discipline itself, but you can only get a level 1 in your ceremonies or your rituals. It's kind of the idea is that the blood itself, the vampiric blood itself, gives you these discipline powers, and the rituals or the ceremonies, while tapping into the magic inherent in your blood, still requires a lot of education, a lot of teaching, and so it's slower to gain these additional aptitudes that you might have access to. If you're aware at all of any VTM sort of history, the Tremere used to be mages. They're particularly good at blood sorcery. They're very they closely guard their information about blood sorcery. Not so much with modern knights now that they've the Banu Hakim have come over to the Camarilla, and people are experimenting. People are doing their own thing. But the premise still stands that you need to learn how to do these ceremonies or rituals, and that becomes additional information. It takes time, takes energy, takes a teacher to actually help you with these discipline powers. Many storytellers will say you can develop these as you get older. You tap into these disciplines a bit more. You just start to feel what the blood is capable of offering you. But ceremonies and rituals, you actually need someone to teach you. Cool. So we'll take a look at Oblivion and see what powers we can get with this. Come on, computer, you can do it. Cool. So, as an individual who is Hakata, who was good at predicting deaths, I feel like she would be disinclined to stretch out into the La Sombra shades of Oblivion, which would be harnessing shadows. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where understanding some of the lore of where V5 has come from and where these discipline powers have come from allows you to understand the flavor for these particular things. So things like Oblivion, which is now a shared discipline between the La Sombra, who harness shadows, pulled from Oblivion itself, and the Hakata, who really go hard for the necromancy. So being able to know what each of these is trying to do, where it's coming from, does help you pick if you don't want to play a character who's like, I can do all of the things. So to that end, I feel like she would not necessarily be interested and like focused on getting spirits to do her will. I think she would like to see beyond the veil and be able to see what was not there. So I think Oblivion Sight really works well for this particular character. Her eyes turn black. She allows to see in pitch darkness and perceive ghosts who aren't actively hiding their presence. So she could, ghosts, can you hear me? She can do that seancing kind of a thing with relative ease. That being said, if a ghost doesn't want to be seen, she's not going to see it. And that's okay. Some people just don't want to be perceived, and that's all right. So we've got Oblivion Sight, and I feel like where the veil thins is also a really good thing for her. That will help her know, where recent murders happened or where a lot of murders happened. Tapping in again to that, being able to predict death, that tie in with death, murder, passing, that sort of a thing. These are all words that Twitch probably doesn't like, and I'm just saying them out loud. So we'll go with, Oblivion Sight and Where the Veil Thins for the two Oblivion discipline powers. Taking a look at all specs now, as soon as that updates. And you can tell that it's been a day because I'm singing a lot of little silly songs. Alrighty then. Come on. Come on. I am tired of this. Hurry up. All right. So we've got Oblivion Sight, which allows us to see ghosts. Sense the Unseen, by some interpretations, is pretty similar. So it allows you to see beyond the mundane. If there's another vampire that's obfuscated, you can roll a contested roll to try and find them. If there's some blood sorcery in the middle of a room, you might be able to find them depending on how your storyteller rules it. While this could be handy for her, I wonder if heightened senses might actually work better for her. She can already see in pitch dark, but being able to hear and hear ultrasonic frequencies and smell cowering prey. I don't think she'd be so interested in that. So maybe we will go with doubling up on being able to seeing shenanigans. So we'll go with that. Yeah. No, I can spin that. She's not very physical. She avoids confrontation. So if she knows that someone's there, she knows to just avoid them. That could be the way that she utilizes that. And if she can see dormant blood sorcery spells and rituals, she could be of additional use to the family, given that not very many of them have access to blood sorcery. It could be something that she's able to go, oh yeah, fucking Tremere have been here. Or Banu Hakim. We don't discriminate. Unless it's the Tremere. All right, moving on to Oblivion ceremonies. And again, like your blood sorcery rituals, you've always got access to 1 point less than your discipline power. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, why can't she go? Oh, because she doesn't have enough. She needs the binding fetter to get summon spirit. Ah! And what do I need for gift of false life? Ashes to ashes. Darn it. Oh, gosh. Okay, so Traveler's Call is very heavily linked with Shamalites, and I don't want to make her a Shamalite, so maybe we need to go and reassess our Oblivion. Maybe she does want to talk to spirits so that she can find out how they died. Maybe that's sort of the way that we weave this sort of tale. Okay, so we can get rid of that because we've got the Auspex Sense the Unseen. It's not as good. Certainly not for seeing in the dark. All right, so if we go with the Binding Fetter, then we can summon Spirit. Yeah. We want to get to this, though. What does that require? Why do you need? Or is it Fatal Precognition? That requires Auspex too. Okay, okay. 100% not me. And that also requires Auspex too. Cool! Right, so we'll give her the Binding Fetter for now. This will unlock Summon Spirit, which is kind of her card of bread and butter. Fine, I'll allow it. Yeah, I don't think Ashes to Ashes is really her style. Ashes to Ashes is used to decompose a body really quickly. And I don't think that that's her. I don't think that she would do that or really harness that power. Yeah, man. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Plague. Thank you for dropping in. Go get some rest and recover. I hope you get better soon. Okay, back to our ceremonies. Cool. Now we can do Summon Spirit. Boop. Summon Spirit selected. Okay. So, we've put our dots into our disciplines. We've chosen our powers. We've got some ceremony underway. As soon as it finishes selecting. And next up is our predator type. Boop. I'd love to hear if you guys have a favorite clan. Or for next time after we do Bob, what kind of a historical fictional character can we make into a vampire? That would be fun. Okay. So, predator types are all about how you prefer to feed. It's not the only way you can feed. You can absolutely feed in different ways. This is more how you've, through your own life, honed your skills and talents to become a vampire. So, we've got a bunch of things here. I am not going to click on them all because this poor computer cannot handle that. Suffice to say, Grave Robber and Grim Reaper kind of fit this character a bit. Let's take a look at Grave Robber. So, grave robbers often feed from fresh corpses, but despite their name, they also feed from mourners in cemeteries and visitors and patients in hospitals. Melancholic resonance in a victim's blood appeals more than any other humour. So, this is the four historical humours that aid different types of disciplines and rituals. So you get a bunch of special, you get some a specialty, you get some additional dots. You get feeding merit, haven, and a herd floor, and it tells you what your predator pool is. Let's take a look at Grim Reaper. I feel like Grim Reaper is more in keeping with her. So, Grim, also known as a plague rat, you only feed on those about to die. You seek out hospice care facilities, assisted living homes, and shelters. This means you are constantly on the move, looking for new victims near the end of their lives, and often have a difficult time settling down yourself. You can add a specialty of awareness death. How in keeping with our character here. You gain 1 dot of Auspex or Oblivion. You gain 1 dot of allies or influence in the medical community. An extra dot in humanity, which is good because our character is now down 1 because of her age. And you gain a feeding floor, which is a prey exclusion of healthy mortals. I feel like this is all in keeping with our crazy Maria Hikata here. I think we are going to go with Grim Reaper. Yeah, this makes the most sense to me. It will then, as soon as it finishes refreshing, get us to start assigning these points. Cool. All right, taking a look at specialties. I am probably going to put it into the awareness death because this just makes the most sense. Larceny forgery, yeah, I could see that if you were playing, say, someone who needed to gain access to these things through forging a pass. Cool. Boop. We are going to select that. And then we're going to come down to disciplines. And I think we're probably going to put that second dot into Auspex so that we can get the second level premonition. And one thing that I really like about this is it doesn't just boot us back out. Because this is all very step by step, you are still, like, you can see that it could take us back here for this section of it, but instead it's taking it within the predator type. So we can see why these points have been assigned this way. I really appreciate that. This is some careful thinking about pulling a character together that, at least when you're doing it on paper, does have you go backwards and forwards quite a bit. I actually tend to do a lot of my character building on laminated sheets because I just find it easy to kind of rejig a bit. I find that using pencil isn't so great. Premonition. Now, premonition's a funny one. Storytellers either love or hate it. I love it. I love players with premonition because it allows me to feed them clues when they're just not grabbing the hooks or when they're going off and doing their own thing. I can pull a premonition onto them and go, you're going the wrong way. If you go this way, you're going to encounter boredom or some big nasty, that sort of a thing. You actually want to head this way instead. Night, Piggalek. Thank you for dropping in. Rest well. All right, now we get down to the advantages and flaws from being a Grim Reaper. Hello, Ozymandias. Come on. I want to finish. Yes, so we get the prey exclusion of healthy mortals. That means that we can't feed on healthy mortals. Your Ventru will also have a prey exclusion, and a number of other different types of kindred will also have prey exclusions. Some will only feed from a particular type, and therefore they cannot feed from other types. Your Ventru, they can feed from other types. It just requires a lot of willpower. So with the Grim Reaper predator type, you do not feed from healthy mortals because you are in it for bringing on the death? Question mark. Cool. So now we get into the fun part, advantages and flaws. And I think here is where we're going to take a little break. So go and get up, stretch, grab yourself a drink. I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea because it is quite cold. And when we come back, we will dive into these advantages and flaws. Okay. Thank you for being patient, folks. Right. Stretched, hydrating. Let's get into it. So, we're now looking at advantages and flaws. First things first, I want to take a look at some lore sheets that might be appropriate for this particular character. Lore sheets are special bits of history from V5, or from Vampire the Masquerade rather, that they can talk to history of your character or your character's family or bloodline. They can talk to people that you've had interactions with, or someone who you have caught the eye of, that sort of a thing. It could be organizations that you've been part of, that sort of a thing. And it's a little bit more than just putting in dots to a particular element, say your haven or that sort of a thing. A Ventru might have 5 dots in resources, which means a lot of money, though not necessarily liquid. But then when you add in, say, the lore sheet, Descendant of Hardestat, that really raises the prestige. It's a known name. You've got heritage. You've got some status associated with that as well. And so it really does play into the idea that this is a really rich world and you are part of said rich world. That being said, you can absolutely make a very playable character without utilizing a lore sheet at all. They are not mandatory. They're flavor. They're nice to have. Hello, can you please? Maybe I can't start with a lore sheet. I should be able to. Oh no, come on. Oh, don't do this to me. There we go. Okay, so lore sheets. There are a lot of them. They are spread out amongst a butt ton of books. A butt ton of books. But there are a number that are of particular interest to the Hecata, given that they are a clan made up of a lot of bloodlines. There are a lot of lore sheets pertaining to said bloodlines. So you've got the Bankers of Duncerne, you've got Bloodplague, which is very in keeping with the Lamia. You've got Flesh Eaters, like the Nagaraja, which is another bloodline of the Hecata. Grudge Masters, so Milliners, they're one of the little families. Harbingers of Ashur. There's a lot here to choose from, and it can be quite daunting to start off with. So if you'd rather not delve, if you're new to the world, you'd rather not delve into this sort of a thing. You can, like I said, you can absolutely make a character that is fun to play, very, very entertaining, very, very well established within the world without breaking into lore sheets. I would like to see a search feature for these. That would be really good. But given, oh, there we go, there's a Lamia. Given how, oh gosh, what's the way to put it? These can be really intricate. And as you'll see in a second, they're not just a single facet. You can really delve into these quite a lot. So I get why they haven't done that. I think for this particular character, I don't think she's been heavily influenced by the Book of Nod, which is something that I normally go with for characters. Maybe she's a Rossellini? So one thing about the Giovanni when they took over the clan of death from the Cappadocians is they brought a lot of little families in. Rossellini's, Milliners, Puttanescas, Bankers of Dunsern from Scotland, all bringing in a new element to the family. And now we can see that they are a bunch of bloodlines. Harbingers of Ashur is kind of really the only hat tip to the Cappadocians, and not all Cappadocians became harbingers, so it's a bit strange. Hmm, hmm, hmm. I wonder. I don't think she would have been called to the family reunion. She's not social. She's not antisocial, but she's just not interested in hanging around with people that much. I wonder if, in fact, she is of the Lamia bloodline. So let's open this out a little bit. And of course, if Iker and Ink is still in the chat, they've probably not. They will give me absolute hassle for being a Lilith lover. So the Gorgons are supposedly descended from Lilith, who is the Dark Mother, if you've seen the revelation of the Dark Mother and heard of the Bahari. That is she, as well as Cain. Their founder was a priestess, supposedly named Lamia, who claimed to be a daughter of the Dark Mother herself. Historically, the Lamia were the bodyguards of the Cappadocians. So Cappadocians studying death, not particularly, not always on this plane of existence, I think is a good way of putting it. And the Lamia would stay behind performing Bahari rites while their Cappadocian wards or charges did their thing, whatever that was. So yeah, taking a look at the different dots, legend claims the bite of the Lamia once spread plague to their victims. These nights, the bite of the Lamia is no longer fatal, though a few, like yourself, have some remnants of the disease left in their system. Once per story, you can choose to infect your mortal prey with disease, causing them 1 aggravated health. This doesn't make sense for her. Nope. I don't feel like this suits her. So I don't think we will go with that. I don't think she's of the Puttanesca. Nation of Blood is very much in the Samedi wheelhouse. Yeah, she's not Puttanesca. Maybe she is just Giovanni. Am I making a Giovanni character? Ooh. Hang on while I clutch my pearls. Well, they do have a lore sheet as well. It's La Famiglia Giovanni. There we go. Let's see what's available here. Until recently, whenever an outsider kindred thought about the clan of death, they pictured the Giovanni family. Their origins stretch back before the Roman Empire, when they were known as Iovianus or Jovians, and the entire time they've had their hands in kindred affairs. The original Giovanni family knows how to play the game better than anyone, crafting an identity as devil kindred to strike the right balance of fear and respect in their rivals and their relatives. This could make up for a bit of a failing in her merits and flaws thus far, and would also bolster that idea of she's not social, but she has connections. Yeah, I think we might do this one. So we select it here. Ba, ba, da, ba, da, ba. It should then allow us to select how many dots we wanted. Maybe. Oh boy. It really doesn't like it. But this also kind of works in with that idea from the Grim Reaper of her having a retainer, some sort of influence within the medical field. Yeah. She's not well liked, but she is respected, which can be a more powerful thing. So we're going to go with petty cash because that's going to give us the resources and the retainers access. Okay, So I think that we've selected it, because from here we should be able to see in merits, resources and retainers, or is that in backgrounds? I can never quite remember where it fits. Ah, there we go. Select, please. And we should see this come out of our advantages track up the top here in the middle section. Hello. Maybe. All right. I don't think that selected the level of the law sheet that we wanted. Oh gosh, this is painful. Thank you so much to everyone who's still watching. I am so sorry. Yay for Australian internet and a very old computer. There we go. All right, so we'll select this. And now, once it's updated, we should see this in the merits and backgrounds. So we get 4 dots to spread amongst the resources and retainers backgrounds for free. Well, for free. Because we just paid 3 dots of advantages to get 4 dots. So, I mean, sometimes it's not just the law aspect. Sometimes it is a cold hard fact that you get additional bits and pieces. Okay, so if we come now to our merits, and truth be told, when you are creating a character sheet, this is the bit that you will probably spend the majority of your time on. Not even crafting your backstory, because you should have got a pretty good idea of the type of person that you're playing before you even open a character sheet. Given that you want to think about the person that your character was before they became a vampire, so that you can then like choose their attributes and their skills and that sort of a thing based off of that. And given that some of the clans have very particular people that they would choose to embrace in, that would also, help you figure out what kind of a person your character was before you even get this far. So now it merits, and I know that we've got some resources. Ooh. Okay. Well, for once, we actually see a loading symbol. It's a bit hard to see, but it's there. That's kind of nice. I don't think she's archaic. I don't think she's a Bahari for once in my life. I feel like she would have a long bond. Only because she doesn't seem like the kind of person who would go along willingly with what the Giovanni have. That might be some of my own biases coming forward. But I think she would have a long bond, and she would probably be bonded to someone in the family. Giovanni are like that. They like to keep their friends close and their enemies even closer. So, given that she is talented, they probably want to keep her around. So, there's a 1 dot floor that we have, and we've got 4 of those points that we need to assign. So that's something. Selecting that does mean that we can't get, bond resistance, short bond, unbondable, that sort of a thing. We could still make her a bond slave. I don't think that we will do that though. What is knowledge hungry? Let's take a look at that. There we go. I really, really like how this tracks your points as you're going rather than summing them all up at the end. It makes it super, super easy to see how well you're assigning things, especially when they list them like this, because it can sometimes be difficult to see, oh, is that a flaw? Is that an advantage? I don't understand. Yeah. And definitely within the book, sometimes it can be difficult to see what is an advantage, what is a flaw. You always feared that you wouldn't have the time to learn everything you wanted about what's truly important. Well, that's one problem solved. The time to learn is not always now, though. You'll regretfully put a book in your studies and attend to more life-threatening matters. At character creation, pick a topic that your character hungers to study. When your character comes across books, tutorial videos, college seminars, or other methods of learning about their chosen subject, make a willpower roll at difficulty 3 to resist chasing their obsession. Oh, that's delicious. Select. What is something that she can get knowledge hungry about? I feel like funerary rites of civilizations throughout history. And that would be very fitting. Yeah. Yeah. Night, Gnomish. Thank you for coming by. Let's take a look at backgrounds and see what they've got to offer for us. So this is where we'll find allies, enemies, resources, that sort of a thing. Backgrounds are things that you've accumulated along the way. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Okay, so we've got a dot of allies and influence. So I am thinking the night manager of an assisted living care centre is probably her ally. Probably for letting them know that their parent was passing soon, tying into that whole idea of she knows or is talented at knowing when people are going to pass. So she is an ally, or they are an ally. Let's go with David Moriarty. Wow, if I could spell, I'd be dangerous. Moriarty. Night manager of an assisted living care facility. Thankful for Maria's help in determining when his parent was passing. Yep. So they're a one dot. Not always available to offer assistance, so that's good. They have their own concerns. This plays into it all. Yep. So a weak ally is not necessarily someone who is physically weak, but just, doesn't have a lot of strings to pull, doesn't have a lot of influence, but has some. And so a night manager of an assisted care living, it's a small area. They have a very small domain of their own. They can influence maybe 2 or 3 people. But a weak ally who is available and willing and able at the right time can be just as helpful as someone who can very overtly pull strings. So yes. And I feel like they're 50-50 reliable as well. They're not always available. They've got their own stuff. There may be an emergency at work, so they're not always going to be able to pick up the phone. Yep, this makes sense. Okay. So the weak ally point got assigned to this point here that we got from the Grim Reaper character predator type. So the additional dot that we've got for reliability that we've just assigned here, that is still waiting to update, should come from our 9 points that we have at the top of our sheet. And indeed, we said that it's been taken off here. Excellent. So back to backgrounds. I should also add that this section, most of your character creation should be done with your storyteller. Kane was never right. You hush your face now. Night, John. Thank you so much for dropping by. Enjoy Fallout. So yeah, most of your character creation should absolutely be done with your storyteller. Your merits, backgrounds, advantages, flaws, that sort of a thing, 100%. If you're thinking of taking a lore sheet, you absolutely need to talk to your storyteller before you start pulling on something that you are relying on, because in their interpretation of the world, those things may not be available. Aw, stop it. You'll make me blush. But thank you. Okay, so we have 2 dots in flaws and we've got 5 dots in advantages that we need to take care of. We also have dots for resources that we need to be pulling in together from our lore sheet for La Familia Giovanni. So, as soon as the tool loads, we will get into those resources. Those will be free because we've already paid for them with the lore sheet. So we won't see them come off the advantages in the top of that middle section there. Yeah. Starting to think about what we would pull together for the rest of those. Got some ideas. So we've got to put dots across resources and retainers. Retainers are servants or assistants, generally mortal, or they may be a ghoul, depending on how many dots you put into them. But yes, so we have 4 dots to put across resources and the retainer. I don't see her as having a particularly great retainer. I think it's maybe just someone who can do the dry cleaning during the daylight hours, go and run some errands. But I do see her having access to a good amount of money. Again, ritual accoutrement, very expensive. Some of it anyway. Some of it hard to find. She's going to need to pay off people to go and get bones and shit. So for that reason, I'm probably going to stick her 3 dots into resources. Now, bear in mind, resources isn't liquid assets. It's not necessarily cash that you have on hand. If you're playing a longer chronicle, your storyteller may suggest that you need to spend some time to liquidate some of those assets if you need a large sum of cash all at once. This is going to take time and you need to be patient. But we are going to go with 3 dots for rich. The law sheet says that she has access to a sizable bank account. So I think this makes sense. It may mean that she can't take out large sums of money all at once. She may need to get a signature from someone else in the family before she can, you know, say take out $20,000 to buy a new car or whatever. But she has it there. She has access to it. And then I think we're going to put 1 dot into retainer. One thing that we should do is put in the source or where we are getting these assets from. So it is bank account held by, if I could spell, I would be dangerous. Bank account held by the family. Description: smaller sums can be accessed readily. Larger amounts require a signatory. And this stops us from OPing and being, you know, the spendthrift ventruse, just like, yeah, whatever, throw my cash around. Here's my credit card, go for it. And just gives a little more realism. I know we're playing essentially a fantasy game, but it gives a little bit of realism to it. Cool. How strange, it's taken the dots off this. Curiouser and curiouser. All right. So one thing I have noticed in the oh dear, it's taking a sweet amount of time to do this. In the 3rd panel on our character sheet here, there is no back button, but we use the central panel here to navigate backwards and forwards. That can be quite disconcerting until you figure out where everything is and how to utilize it. I feel like this would possibly work really well on a touch interface. I haven't tried that myself yet, but yeah, we'll absolutely look into that. Maybe if and when I get a new computer. I feel like if I do more of these, it's going to become an imperative. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm going to click back to backgrounds here. Oh my goodness, what is going on? I mean, there's slow and then there's slow. Retainers. Okay. Yes, we are going to select a retainer. So as it says there, you have 1 or more loyal and steadfast servants or assistants. Oh boy. It really is having a moment, isn't it? I do also like that on the 3rd panel here, underneath where it has what particular background you're looking at, it does tell you where, like what resource it is pulling the information from. So you see here under Haven, you've got Core Book and Children of the Blood. Presumably if you click on that, you will see elements from both of those books. Under Herd, you've got Core Book and Player's Guide. I think this is really good to try and promote familiarity between the resources. And if you see a resource on somebody else's work, it helps you go, oh, well, maybe I do want that one. I like it because it satisfies my marketing brain, but also, if I'm trying to utilize this tool for, say, first timers, and they get the bug and they want to start getting the books, it gives them a really good idea of what books might be good for them initially. Because when you come into a new IP and there's an array of books, it can be daunting. I know there's a number of people that I've spoken to who look at my collection from all of the editions and go, there's just so much. How do you know where to start? And I'm like, I started with V5. I started collecting the V5 books. I had some of the other books already on hand, but really, I started collecting them as I learned about them and went, oh, I wonder what's in that book. And that's what she wrote. All right, so we're going to go with an average retainer because we've still got some dots that I want to use up here. I'm not understanding either why these dots aren't coming from the lore sheet, unless they already are. But we should absolutely be seeing 4 dots coming from Familia Giovanni for resources and retainer, and I don't understand why we're not. So, their name is Sophia. She is a let's say she is a daughter of the family who runs errands and is sometimes receptionist. No, not receptionist. Let's go with nanny for various within the family. There we go. Okay, so before we get on to the final 2 dots of our floors, I might take a look at this. This is not the librarian. Oh, she could be a librarian. Yeah. Sophia could be a librarian. I like it. And works in come back. Oh, this poor computer is having words with me. Come back to me, Sophia. So maybe these dots were already included in the advantages and flaws dots. Maybe. Maybe. Oh dear, come on, internet. You can do it. I believe in you. As a librarian in the occult library for the family. There we go. Cool. So now we've got 2 dots in flaws. So to that end, we're going to come back to the merits here. Now, she's knowledge hungry and she has long bond. So I am thinking that maybe she has an enemy. Someone associated with a family that she predicted the death within, who thinks that maybe she's responsible for that death. Human, not particularly effective, but also not willing to just roll over. They can make a pretty, that kind of an element to your character's background can make a pretty entertaining plot device for a storyteller to pull on. You know, you're at a social event, you're trying to fly under the radar, you've got blush of life on, everything's good, everything's sweet, and then someone bursts into the room and goes, aha, it's you, throws chaos and aspersions, and yeah, means that you have to scramble. You've just spent time at the table carefully plotting how you're going to navigate this social scenario, and suddenly you need to come up with how on earth this individual is going to be quietened, removed from the equation, subtly shifted elsewhere, and then how you're going to get the situation back on track. I really, really love playing those moments because it makes you think on your toes. You think you've got this carefully laid plan, and you kind of, there's a comfort in that. Yep, no, I've got the plan. I know what's going to happen. It's all going to be fine. It's not fine. Okay. So we've created a pretty flawed character. She's not one dimensional, but she also, I mean, because we've gone with a specialist array of skills, she doesn't have a wide spread of skills. And this is being reflected in her merits and backgrounds, in that she quite clearly has been studying, focused on this one thing, and hasn't had much time to get out, amass a new skill set, go and find new friends, that sort of a thing. And so, in social scenarios, or when it comes time to really put her skills to the test, she, as a player, you're going to have to think outside the box to go, okay, well, I don't have the skill that I need for that, but maybe I can approach it sideways, that sort of a thing. I want to make an enemy. Please? I want to make a 2-dot enemy. Justin. Time. Because because he always butts in just in time. Okay, so we'll make him a gifted enemy. Where'd that go? Where'd his name go, George? So he's a gifted enemy, which means that he has a stat array that you can find in the core book. And I mean, they're not always available. They're not always going to butt in. They're not always going to be able to take over a situation. But their hatred of you has demanded of them a skill set that they build up. So perhaps Justin is a conspiracy theorist, intelligent, matching our Maria for intelligence, and not unlike her, not the most social of characters, bit socially inept, but is very good at manipulating a situation and having people believe what they're saying. And that is where the gifted comes in. Okay, so we have one more dot of flaws before we can proceed. I am thinking that perhaps maybe she has a mythic flaw. Let's take a look. Because these, while they don't come up very often, are also very entertaining. For one-shots, I tend to make at least 2 characters stake bait, only to sort of up the ante when it comes to combat. Yeah, folkloric bane. Yeah. A Giovanni who's repelled by garlic. Delicious. Oh gosh. I love it. So silly. And yet. Cool. Well, with all of our dots filled out for our advantages and flaws at this point, we can move on to the concept and lore. And she did used to love garlic when she was alive. Yep, 100%. I can see her absolutely as one of those people who would go, one surely you mean a head of garlic per recipe? No. And now, nope, 0. Because hilarious. All right, so we are not going to sit and fill this out a lot, but to give you an idea of what it looks like, we will go through it all together. So you can see that your core concept details split into character details, beliefs, and coterie. Character details are, your concept for your character, dates that are important to them, what generation they are, any distinguishing features, the name of your chronicle. In a paper sheet, you would normally find this at the top of your sheet, so we can do that later. But it does tell you, how many sections you haven't filled in, which is really great if you want to make sure you've got as full a character sheet as possible. Going into your beliefs, these are your chronicle tenets, your touchstones, your convictions, your ambition, and your desire. The things that kind of keep you in check as a vampire. And again, we see the description for each of these elements along with some suggestions. These are all pulled from the book as well, so they're not introducing new ideas at all in this interface. Heading down to your coterie. This is a section where you can talk about your chronicle tenants here, the city that you're in, the members in your coterie, any notes about your chasse, lien, and portillon, resonance in your particular domain if your coterie already has one, debts and boons that you've accrued, any haven merits and flaws if you've got a combined haven and for your coterie, and any coterie goals, which is really great. This is something that is expanded on this interface that you would find not in your simple 2-page character sheet, but certainly in some of those extended character sheets out there that have been made by other very talented individuals. So I really appreciate that they've taken this and extended it, because the official 2-pager, it don't have that stuff. Certainly not as nicely laid out as this. Now, because our character is an ancillary, they do have 35 experience, and rather than going back into each of the sections that we filled in before, this is now where we can fill in and assign those dots. Because obviously at this point, this is the final step of your character sheet, and this is when you can go back. You can buy more blood potency, you can buy pretty much anything, and if your storyteller has given you additional experience above and beyond, this is where you can add it. So you still can't homebrew, but this gives you some flexibility for your storyteller to give you a bit more, so that in the event that you're going into a high combat and your character possibly has some higher combat skills, your storyteller can assign experience that you can then put into those sorts of areas. So this is where you can put that. It goes into what your trait costs via experience are. Again, pulled from the core book, so nothing new in here. One thing that I will say is when they're talking about blood sorcery rituals, they don't talk about oblivion ceremonies. Very annoying. I will make a note of that because this is absolutely the sort of thing that I go back to them and go, hey, did you know you didn't include this? They talk about thin blood formulas following the same sort of thing, but they don't talk about Hecata Oblivion ceremonies. I need to make a note in the wise words of Jason Carl. Though said somewhat more. Okay. XP costs not inclusive of Oblivion ceremonies. Cool. So from here, we can then go into your attributes and skills and start assigning this 35 XP that this ancilla has. I will not take you through that because, wow, does this interface not like my computer or my internet? So obviously, by the time I get around to showing you the actual character sheet, again, you can see attributes, skills, specialties. So you can assign those XP points to additional specialties at this point if that is something that you want to do. And those explanations of attributes and skills that we saw back in the beginning of character creation brought back here again, just to make sure that every step of the way you have the information you need to make informed decisions about your character, which I cannot stress this enough. This is really great. At this point as well, you can purchase a new discipline, and the costs will be assigned depending on whether or not it's in clan. So for this particular character being a Hecata, if I went to go and choose Fortitude, the cost would be reduced because that is an in-clan discipline. If I wanted to go and get, say, Obfuscate, it would be at a higher cost because that's an out-of-clan discipline. So that's great to see. Advantages and flaws, not unlike what we just went through. We've got a massive selection that we can choose from. Really quite nice. I really would like in the advantages and flaws, in the disciplines, to be able to do some homebrew. But if it's just official sources because of the collaboration, I can understand that. We'll get into some reasons why I don't like this tool in a minute. So, blood potency. You can spend experience points to up your blood potency. I do, as a storyteller, I like that to be assigned with a story. How did you get that? Who did you diablerize? What happened? Because this sets up hooks for the plot to go, okay, well, what are some other NPCs that we can include in this? Yeah, it's something that I like to do. It is very expensive, but it is there. And yes, we have the updated chart. The chart for blood potency and the benefits in the core book is incorrect, but in the player's guide, it is correct. So, assuming we have gone through all of this, we then come to the character sheet, which I think is really nicely laid out for a digital tool, as we will see soon. I think that D&D Beyond could probably get some really good tips and tricks from this. I mean, granted, a character sheet for Vampire the Masquerade is not necessarily trying to relay as much information in a single interface as perhaps, say, your wizards or your sorcerers or warlocks are trying to do in D&D. That being said, I do find D&D Beyond can be a bit daunting, certainly for a new player coming in, trying to find out where everything is on the sheet and just keep track of things can be quite difficult. I ran a coterie of 6 players who had never played V5. Utilizing this tool, they were able to keep up no problem. So I think that is a testament to, and I don't know this for certain, but I feel like they have gotten some people who have actually played this game to go through and go, well, what are the things that you really need to see at a glance? First page, what are some things that maybe you can delve into a little bit later? And we will relegate those to different tabs. I think as well that the way they have constructed the character creator is very well thought out. My particular example tonight does not showcase how intuitive it is, only because my poor computer cannot deal with it. But like I said earlier, I managed to pull together 6 character sheets for neonates in about 2.5 hours. Each was a different clan, and each I had some pretty rich backstories supplied to me, but absolutely no skills or suggestions for feeding types at all. And yeah, managed to power through it. Ordinarily, a single character sheet on paper can take me up to 2 hours. If I'm doing it for someone that I really care about and really want to make sure that they've got a good character. And yeah, Aussie, D&D Beyond, when you don't have access to the right book and you need that class or that ability, is really annoying. Certainly what they have now put in place, where you cannot just buy that feat or that class feature, you must buy the entire book, is absolutely outrageous. I understand it from a business perspective, because Hasbro or whoever is calling the shots are in it for the money. But if I have bought a class feature from a book, if I have bought an ability, why am I still paying full cost? Why do digital assets cost sometimes as much as the actual physical? This doesn't make sense to me at all. That is a rant for another night. And same with this, Aussie. Like, you cannot access Hasbro, but not my pro. Hey NVC, how you doing? So with Demiplane, you cannot access the features, coterie merits from, say, Cult of the Blood Gods, if you have not purchased that book and do not have it sitting in your library. That being said, if you have the upgraded membership, like I do, I can share my content with a select number of people, and I can remove that access, I believe. So if I had someone in my group who wanted to harness my library rather than their own to build up their character sheet, they could do that. As soon as this finishes loading, I will start to explain things that I don't like about this tool. And for some of you, they may be showstoppers. But let's take a look at the character sheet. So, we see who we're dealing with, we see what clan they are, what their age is, what the feeding type is, what their bane is, what the compulsion is. You've got an integrated roller right off the bat. So you've got your rouse check, you can see what experience you have left to spend, and you've got your dice roller down here. You can click this to come up with your dice rollers. You can also just click, say, strength, athletics, and that will pull together your dice pool for you. So you can see here, is it regular? How many regular? How many hunger? Based off things that are in check here. And then you just roll. And of course, now that I've done that, it's going to take forever to update. But you can see the really important stuff at a glance. You've got your attributes set out as you do for a normal paper sheet, with your physical, your social, and your mental, from left to right. You can see when you've got a specialty. So if you see against awareness here, you've got a blue circle with an S in it. What it doesn't do is it doesn't spell out what your specialty is. So you do need to keep track of that yourself, which can be a little bit annoying. Certainly as you start to spend more experience and get more specialties, that can fill up on your character sheet. It can be difficult to keep track of because those specialties only come into play if you're using that particular element of that skill. It's a minor thing. I would like to see, like we do on a paper sheet, the ability to actually see your specialty plain and clear. Your trackers can be expanded or shrunk down. I really like how clear these are. I haven't tried to figure out stains on your humanity yet. So I'd be interested to see how that works. Certainly for a Hecata character, if you get a crit or a bestial failure, stains really do come into play, and I'm not sure how they get tracked. Oh, hang on. Yeah, no. That will be interesting. I need to actually really play with a character first. Maybe when I get a new computer, I can do that as a, there we go, there's a stain. Cool. So that's actually quite delicious. Beautiful. So stains, easy to check. That's great. We can click hunger and track that coming up, and we can see those being reflected in rolls. Beautiful. This is what we want. And again, your health. So if we want to check and get a superficial marker, a point of health damage, as soon as it updates, then we do that. And I believe we check it again. Excuse me? Hello? I'll have to figure that out. Moving on down, we've got disciplines and powers. Great. You can see whether or not they're free, whether they require a rouse check, what the role is, a brief description of what goes on with them, and then if we click on the side here, we come up onto the right hand side panel with a bit of an explanation of what it's all about. I promise you do. There we go. It's starting to pull stuff that I've clicked on a little while ago, folks. Sorry. But if you want to know like what you can achieve with certain things, you do get that here. It also allows you to spend your XP at character level. So you don't necessarily need to go back to character creation time to go and spend or manage that XP. You can just do it in this interface, which is kind of great. That's a big plus. I really appreciate that. And then you've got your merits and your flaws, your concept and law information all down in tabs along this section underneath your trackers. All right, on to the things that I don't like about this tool. Currently, there is no download to PDF. So you can create it and you can use it and you can use it at a table, and that's great. But you can't download it to a PDF to print it out. And that is a major flaw in my mind. I hope that is coming. It has been requested in the forums. I really, really hope it's happening, because the second thing that I don't like about it at the moment, and again, I hope this is coming, is there is an ability to run games through this. You can set up a group and share your library. But as a storyteller, I cannot create a bunch of character sheets and share them in a group. Each individual player needs to create their character sheet in that group. So, as someone who runs a lot of one-shots, I can't just pull all of my one-shot characters into here and then assign them to a group to run that one-shot. Use it as a house. So currently what I'm doing at the moment is I have a Discord server that has a category for each of the one-shots that I run, and I have to have the character sheets actually written out in a PDF, which obviously I can't use this for. I feel like the longer that gets delayed, as long as those features get delayed, that is going to be another hurdle to actually getting this tool adopted by a majority of players. I feel like the lack of ability to import homebrew items and homebrew disciplines is also going to really limit uptake of this tool. It's not a deal breaker, obviously, but I think that as we see the Storyteller's Vault go from strength to strength, we're seeing new titles put out almost daily. Until storytellers are able to create their own content and share it with their players, I don't think that this tool is going to get a lot of traction. Things that I think they should do: download to PDF so I can print it out. Let me, as a storyteller, buy all of the things, create a group, create a bunch of character sheets, share them in the group. I feel like that would have so much uptake for this particular tool. It's not even funny. I would probably push all of my games to this platform and just use Discord as a voice channel. Honestly, if I could have everything here in one tool that is a digital asset that's easy for me to reset at the end of a game, easy for me to share with players, yeah, I absolutely would use it. I think as well that and I hate to say this, I think as we see more splats come over to a V5 edition, there is going to be a larger push for cross-splat games. And I think that if these guys cannot get those assets up and running quickly enough, there is going to be less and less demand for a tool like this. I feel like speed to market is absolutely imperative when it comes to getting a new tool with an IP that is potentially going to take off again. We saw a bit of a renaissance for Vampire the Masquerade a few years ago. I think it's coming up to another one, and if these guys cannot harness that momentum and get their IPs up in a really timely fashion, they're going to miss out. And that's going to be unfortunate, because I feel like with some accessibility concerns addressed, and with that PDF shared a group idea addressed, I feel like this could be the premier Vampire the Masquerade tool. I feel like it could eclipse Roll20, which I hate with a passion, that can only be rivaled by the heat of a sun. I despise Roll20. I cannot explain why or how, I just do. I think that it could eclipse paper, because it's just so damned easy when you don't have a computer that's struggling to keep updating every time there's a change made. So that would be my advice. Get better at your speed to market, and allow people to share and download your character sheets. Really, something fundamental. I understand from a business perspective why they haven't, but I think it's a major, major oversight. Yeah. Let me know if you'd like to see me do another character sheet. I will attempt to get a somewhat faster computer before I do that. I'd also love to know, ping me on the socials, if you've got a fictional character that you would like to see made into a Vampire the Masquerade character. I think that could be fun as well. Um, but yeah, I hope you took something away from this. I hope that it was vaguely entertaining, even if it was me pulling faces and singing funny songs while my computer lags behind. But yeah, this has been Vampire the Masquerade Nexus on Demiplane. If you want to find out more, feel free to ping me. Otherwise, you can go to Demiplane, Demiplane.com. They've got a bunch of IPs there, not just Vampire the Masquerade. If memory serves, they're also bringing in a 5e for D&D, which should be interesting to see how that goes up against D&D Beyond. But yeah, let me know. I also, just as we're closing out, I am a paid professional GM. If you would like to have a game of Vampire the Masquerade, you can head over to Start Playing, and I have a profile there. You can find me as Nefsis Nile, and I am always open to custom requests for games. So I would love to see you at one of my monthly one shots, or if you have a special event. I just ran a Vampire the Masquerade game for a birthday party, which was a absolute hoot. I loved every second of it. Yeah, if you see me around the traps, you can call me by Nefsis. You can say, hey, you, please don't throw things at my head, though. I don't like that so much. Yeah, I will be doing some more of these here and there, just as I, get my chops up for streaming. But thank you so much for coming along for the ride. Again, I hope you had fun, and I will see you next time. Bye.